playing it small is such a disservice to yourself and others, and it doesn't really help. And you deserve to be seen and deserve to be heard, and not everybody's gonna agree, and it feels painful. But let's talk about it. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast Biz on the Brain with your host, me, Annemarie, where we talk about anything and everything related to your journey into authenticity, being unapologetic self, intuition, and everything that comes with it on the path of refinding, re-meeting, rediscovering yourself, and just making a life that is really sparkly and colorful. And that also translates into your business, because why were we into starting our own businesses, into being entrepreneurs, if not to create a life that we want in a way that we want it, that feels natural, as opposed to people dictating what looks normal or is expected? Like, absolutely not. So as I'm on this path, I'm also talking here on this podcast about these issues or these things or these topics that are on my mind. And lately I've been really focused on the core wound of fear of being seen, but also specifically for me, because I'm neurodivergent, I have ADHD, I have also the fear of being perceived. So it's not just that people see me and then judge me, but it's just so much more minute in a way. I don't like people watching me create stuff. I don't like them look at me while I'm working. I do like parallel play, parallel work, which is just, multiple people working in the same room, but separately, but everybody is focused on their own stuff. It helps me focus on work and not getting distracted, because it feels like, oh my gosh, they're concentrating on their work. So I would want to be concentrating on my work. It feels more competitive in a challenging, fun kind of way for me. Personally, like, I love working with friends, like in coffee shops, or sometimes even just going to a library or a coffee shop to just observe people working. Like, for all I know, they could be hanging out on YouTube or TikTok. I wouldn't know. I don't care. But just thinking that they're working helps me snap back from daydreaming and go into work. But I, at the same time, while I do sometimes like looking, I'm just like, oh yeah, they're working. They're looking like really in deep thought. As opposed to staring. I don't do that. I don't like it done onto myself. I always hated it. And I still do. As a kid, when I was like drawing something and I'm deep in thought, and then I would do like the face scrunch and like sticking the tongue out for concentration. It just helps. And then when people comment on it, I became so self-conscious, and they usually didn't mean anything by it. I mean, I had quite a few of my so-called friends in school point things out in a mean girl kind of way, where it's just like so underhanded. It just feels like a statement, but it's loaded with judgment. So like growing up with that and knowing that, especially when you have ADHD, by the age of 14, you've already received how many 100,000 corrective comments. So like every day you get people telling you how you're off, what is strange about you. And so just the underlying fear is always there of somebody noticing something about you and pointing that out. Like even simple things as the way I hold cutlery or the way I hold pens, it doesn't work like they teach you. My hands just can't. I'm also hypermobile. So like that's the background of me. I hating being perceived, because I feel like my nervous system's always ready to be like, oh my gosh, they're gonna like come at me with a hit, come at me with something. It's always like under scrutiny in some way, and I'm working on that. But pair that with being online, with putting yourself online, with all of the social media, with all of the ways you show up with your thoughts, with your actions, with your body language, and me with my colorful exterior. I like all the colors. I love all the seasons. I dress up in fun, quirky ways, and you can't see it, but I'm also wearing a popcorn necklace. It is a little miniature popcorn replica. And when I was in Japan, they also sell a ton of fake food, and it always looks so realistic. Usually you see that in restaurants on display, so you know what to get even if you don't speak the language. But to give you some appetizing insight into the dish. And then you can take classes where you can make your own fake food, or you can go to stores and like buy it uh, for displays, buy it as jewelry, and it's just so amazing. I wanted to buy all of it, but it's a little bit expensive, so it's not it's splurge. But yeah, so all of that really helped me to. I lost my thread. And even my rings, you can not see it, but I have a cookie ring and a donut ring, and they look pretty realistic. I got them in Bulgaria. And all of that makes me naturally stand out. And I do not want to be, the sore thumb or so polarizing visually. But I just feel it expresses my sense of self better. It makes me feel happy if I just wake up and I feel like I want to wear a cat shirt with all of the cats on it, and I'm just going to put on my donut rings, and I put like cute little clips in my hair and put like little space buns there. Then I'm just going to do it. And I do not even think about how that maybe overall is not the best tied together outfit, or like what people think. I just do it for myself, and I go outside, and then when it hits me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is society. There's people there looking and observing potentially. And I live in Germany, where people openly, very clearly look you up and down and then give you a judging stare. 100%, whatever you wear, people will just judge you. Sometimes they will even loudly comment their snark, whatever. Unless you live like in bigger cities like Berlin, nobody cares what you wear in Berlin. They really don't. But I live in a conservative area, so I get stared down wearing a yellow coat. And, I've traveled the world. I've been to 40 different countries. I've lived in a few different countries, and I've always had this kind of sense of how I wanted to look and how I wanted to feel. And I know it really affects my mood. And people also affect my mood, but I decided, you know what? So I could just not dress in a way that I want. I could blend in. I could wear the typical monochromatic grayscale German jeans and Jack Wolfskin jacket gear that is kind of the uniform look, prepared for all weathers, and not feel myself. It will affect me. I'm like very easily stimulated by colors, by beautiful things. I know that it really helps me, especially when I want to be creative. I need all of the visual stimulus. And who am I to deny myself that, right? But if I were to not do this, I would blend in, and then nobody would notice me, which, again, would suit me just fine. But what is the payoff? Like, what is the actual cost of me not getting into gear, not getting a momentum, not just really feeling the joy that I have to then source more? And again, with my ADHD, I always have to look for dopamine to keep me going. It just doesn't naturally exist on a baseline level. I have to get it. And people, as a rule of thumb, don't care about other people. They don't think about them all the time as we do think about ourselves and about what other people think of ourselves. So when you walk down the street, they might look at you, they might have an opinion, or they might even just stare in your general direction, not even perceiving you. They might have thoughts if you were to provoke them in some way visually, and then they might have opinions, and they might say them. But generally, they might not actually care beyond that. Usually people forget about it. Maybe you've made an impression on them, good or bad. But all of that is beyond your control. All of that has nothing to do usually with you at all. Usually, and that's what I've learned, people are so much in their own heads as, you are, as I am, that what they say and what they think and what their opinions and judgments are usually a mirror of their own sense of self. Like, I noticed that when I was so depriving myself of the colors, I took a course on how to match my color type. Like, there's all of these filters now on TikTok where you can see if you're like summer and autumn, winter, like what kind of colors and tones work best with your skin tone and underlying. I started exclusively dressing in brown tones because I'm in autumn. I look really nice with like an ochre, like a mustard, like all kinds of browns, like, fall leaves. And I love autumn. That's my favorite season. But I felt so drab. I felt so boring. And just because it looked flattering on me, it still didn't give me that spark, like that little zest that I usually have when I wear just bold colors. And I remember when I was in university, I started wearing more bolder statement necklaces and tried to experiment with different colors and wear all kinds of stuff. And in school, I had this one mini skirt. It was a corduroy hot pink one, and I loved it. I looked at it in the store window, and I was like, I need to have it. And I tried to justify, like, I don't know how to wear it. It's like, wear shorts, like, but I was like, I don't care. It makes me so happy just looking at it. And I wore it, and I don't even think I wore it well, like the way I styled it and all of that. But it just made me so happy. It made me feel $1,000,000. It just gave me the confidence. And, to hell with people and their thoughts and their judgments. And I got really self-conscious ultimately, and then I dropped it. And I think I mentioned it on a previous podcast, but 2 teenage songs that I absolutely was obsessed with had these 2 lines about colors in them that I just want to stress. And the first one was Hilary Duff's Why Not from the Lizzie McGuire movie, epic, iconic. And, why you're always in yellow when you want to dress in gold. And I listened to that. I was like, yeah, why? Like, why? And then the other line was from Ellie and AJ's Rush, which said, be every color that you are. And I listened to it. I'm like, yes, I want to be all the colors. I want to dress in blue and red and yellow and pink. And now I made those, my brand colors, yellow and pink everywhere. It just really, there's psychology behind colors. There's a lot of science that proves how colors affect us, the different types of lighting, fluorescent and orange, and how white walls are different. And if you use color walls, they could open space it makes them smaller. It activates some aspect, makes you feel calmer for sleeping or more energized with the yellows. All of that has so many roots in what we already know. So why don't we use this? Why do we keep adult homes so boring and white, and they just, they were built and you just left them, you just decorated a little bit? I moved in and I instantly splashed all the colors on the walls. I painted murals. I slept on the floor on a mattress until I figured out exactly where I wanted everything placed. I painted everything myself. Then I dropped all of the hex codes from the paint into Photoshop, and I matched all of the furniture to that, which took some time because there's not a lot of yellow furniture out there. There's a lot of pink stuff, but it's usually for girls, and it's like the princess pink, but I wanted it to be like a dusty rose kind of thing. Anyway, so like it was a whole process and was very mindful of the entire thing. And then when people come in, they're usually just like stunned. Most people love it. My dad hates it, but people are just like, oh my gosh, this looks like you've already lived here for years. This feels so different. Because like every time I go like visit like neighbors in their rooms, their homes, which have the exact same layout as mine currently, they just like such a world of difference between having just a minimalist decor and then just me being all out, all the colors. My clothes are outside. Like I have a wall just with my hat. I have 2 walls with just my hats. I have my books sorted by rainbow colors. I have beautiful green and lush plants. Even my lamps match. The walls match. The background match. My bed match. My blankets match. My cups. Everything is, while it is still being cobbled together, because a lot of the stuff I accumulated over time during my travels, it still ties in and it doesn't feel completely overwhelming or erratic or like too eclectic. There's still a sense of me. So I also try to apply that to my approach to business, Like when I help people out with my creative take on anything, I can do the creative vision, but I can also do the execution with having the background of the marketing goals and strategy and stuff. So like I usually work with the overarching theme of content, under which falls, video creation. I film, I edit, I recut old things. I have also photography, under which also falls my virtual photography, where I can sit anywhere in the world. My clients can be anywhere in the world, and we connect via an app, so I can use their phone, take photos of them, make them look absolutely epic, as you would never be able to do with your own selfie. But all of that ties into me wanting to make everybody be as much of themselves as possible, because that's what I learned in my journey to really owning my stuff, was that as soon as I just dropped the pretense of discarding myself from other people's stares and perceptions and opinions and just waving my own weird flag around, I would attract like-minded weirdo people, and we would just vibe and we would have a great time. We would be hyping each other up. We would be like upward spiraling with crazy ideas, and then just having the blast and amazing time of creating that, making that come to fruition and manifesting our ideas for photos and video projects. But when I kept it very professional in quotation marks, I also couldn't tap into that very specific flavor of creativity that you can only unlock if you just let it go, if you just open all the shutters and just free flow with it. And it's the basis of any kind of brainstorming. They always tell you just like dump it onto the paper. Don't censor yourself before you even written it down. Don't try to organize it. Just put it on there. Just externalize it, write it down, draw it up, like get it out there. And then you can see what you can make with it from there. And that's really how innovation comes up, when you mix new approaches and you come up with strange ideas, and you can always tweak and you can always get outside feedback. But it's really so important to work with your intuition in that way, because for me also creativity is very much tied to intuition. I can't really make sense of the impulses that come in and give me the most random thoughts. I am in video calls with clients, people who are thinking about working with me or just to network and connect, and as I'm talking, I'm suddenly getting, as you want to say, like a download. Like I'm just hearing them talk about their mission, their vision, and my mind already has like, these are the keywords. I hear them, then I see them as a visual. I'm like, oh God, this is what you would feel like. This is like your genre of movie. This is like your soundtrack. I can hear it. I see the colors. I see the edits, like how we open the shot in this angle with this foreground, how we zoom in and how we focus on you maybe stirring your mug, but also there's something playing on your phone, so we zoom in on your phone, and then you're suddenly presenting in a different setting, and then you're seeing yourself multiplied because you're wearing 1,000 different hats, and then you can use those simple visions of yourself and cut them into smaller visuals for like reels. But you can also make it interactive, where you like, which version do you want to see, and then you can make it into a highlight where you can swipe or you can tap, so it's like build your own path kind of thing. So like I just see so many things come at me in any moment that I'm just conversing, and I am also like then able to make that into reality. I can write the copy, I can make the photos, I can make the video, I can tie it into the marketing scheme where we can like also analyze it and track it. But all of that is just because I just let it in. I'm just sitting there and not being like, no, let's just schedule creative time for later. And that's why I also say it's super hard for creatives to charge by the hour, because a lot of people are like, what's your hourly wage? Like, can we just charge by how much time you're working on a project? And I don't do that, because how do you quantify thinking about things? What is it to you if I'm just staring at the wall for 2 weeks, and then suddenly at like the 11th hour, I suddenly get the download and the idea, and I get the momentum and the energy, and I just like do it, and I think about it, I execute it. And it was just that 1 hour, like, let's just exaggerate, like it was just that 1 hour I spent like, especially if you've ADHD, you know the thing when you have to practice for a test or you have to hand in like a big paper. Usually you need that tight deadline for it to spark you into action. Then you suddenly become hyper everything. You suddenly become a superhero. You're just like bending time and space. You type faster than lightning. You are just absolutely crazy. How do you charge that? How do you not look stupid and lazy when you say, I didn't work, I can't give you an update, but then suddenly you have it? It looks like you're lying. So like in the typical 9 to 5, in the quantifiable business model, this doesn't work. This just looks flaky. This looks ridiculous. And so also I'm just walking around, and even in a conversation, even if that's not even a project that I was greenlit for, that I, nailed the deal for, my mind will still already process things. Or I just walk around and I go to a museum, or like I talk to somebody and suddenly I get an idea, and then there's another idea, and suddenly they combine and I can merge them into the project, and it gives me inspiration for it, and I can mull it over. The most fruitful creative aspects of my work regarding anything, really, if it's photo, if it's video, if it's just a concept, happen when I can just sleep on it and just not actively think about it. But I'm just like, okay, I don't have the idea yet. I can't force it. I can't force creativity. So I'm just going to go for a hike. I'm just going to go travel somewhere for a week. And then usually when I don't think about it, it comes at me, it demands my attention. And that's when I'm just like, okay, now I get it. Now I'll grab it from the ether or wherever creativity lives. And I'm just going to make it happen. And then I'm in hyper focus, and don't talk me, don't approach me. I will just not respond to anything. I'm like blinders on, and I just birth it, or whatever you want to call it. And how do you quantify that? How do you track time for that? It makes no sense. And the same, like you don't just track for the time actually spent, but also the expertise, the skill level, all of the things that are tied into it that you have learned over time, or like maybe you use your platform as a content creator, or your social network. How do you quantify that in hours? You don't. Anyway, so that's my take on creativity. But in that, let's tie it back to the overarching theme of showing up as yourself. That is also part of the communication. How you work, of how you best show up, of how your brain works efficiently, and then just communicating that and standing by it, and then being okay with people being like, I can't work with that. And usually when they say they can't work with that, they also come with their own judgments, and they will usually communicate that to you. Not in the nicest way. But I guess that also helps when you grow your confidence and you are much more firm in it. Then you can also repel those people, which again is you showing up as yourself, as communicating who you are, what you do, how you do things, putting that out there on the internet. And sure, people will have opinions about it, but also the people who do want to work with you then know what it would be like to work with you, or know how to make it work with you, so they don't have to guess. And so they also feel much more safe when you set the boundaries and you're like, okay, you can expect my responses to be within Monday to Thursday. I don't respond to emails on Friday to Sunday. Then at least they know. Then they don't feel like, oh my God, did they ghost me? Do I need to double check? Do I need to send more emails? And then you feel frustrated because, they didn't read your mind, all of that. And there might be people who are like, oh no, you need to hustle every day. You need to check your emails every hour, whatever. Go and do that. But leave me alone with your rules that are arbitrary in the first place. And if you work in a big corporation and, you have specified goals, you can do that. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're always in danger of running yourself thin and at the same time losing yourself too much, when you start to put yourself out there all the time, there's a gazillion things you could be talking about. Everything is content, potentially. But also you have all of these cool ideas, you have all of these cool projects, all of these cool people to meet. And then you see one aspect go viral, and then you reproduce that, and then suddenly become known for a thing, because a lot of people also will tell you niche down, be very recognizable in one way, which is also true, but tricky for multi-passionate entrepreneurs like me. But it can also put you in a corner where you feel like, oh gosh, this is now me. This is now my image. This is something that people expect of me. And then maybe you've outgrown it. Maybe you're bored of it, especially if you have ADHD, you want variety, but then people don't validate other parts that you love. And then you feel like that's shriveling up a bit. And then you feel a bit resentful about the things that you replicate. All of that can muddy up your identity, your joy, and the way you authentically show up. So you have to constantly check in with yourself and be like, so how do I get my creativity? How do I just help myself feel validated, also get visible online and perpetuate my business and sustain it and foster networks and community, while also still being authentically yourself, so that people who actually do meet you, especially if you work service-based, meet you as you presented yourself and didn't see a contorted version that you created because it went viral, So it's always the balancing and being honest with yourself, and then by extension with others. Like, your internal world also is externally reflected. So the way you see yourself, you also see how others treat you. And when you notice that you only attract people who don't want to pay you, who don't want to hear your creative vision, is that something because you held back, because that's something that you didn't show, that you didn't proudly advertise? Maybe that's it. And, there's a ton of different reasons why you're doing that. Like for me, like I said, like the fear of being seen, like while I love sharing my stories and giving people my perspective on things, if they want a review or like a second set of eyeballs on things or just a different take from my ADHD brain on things, I love doing that. But also, like I said, I need to check in with myself and know when I can do it freely, how they might receive it, if it's a good match, if I can be honest in my own way without having to constantly censor myself, removing the exclamation points in my language, verbally or even written. If we don't vibe on that way, then again, it's not a match and you might fall back into the people-pleasing, censoring yourself. So it really ties in being mindful and being your own biggest cheerleader and advisor and, the person who stands up for yourself. And it just, with any boundaries, just helps people understand you better, helps people retain you in their life, in their business, and is a repellent for resentment, is a repellent also for boredom. And I feel like if you just honor people's special gifts and special ways of showing up and how they are seeing the world, it just makes everybody much more happy. And it's just a great beacon of, and a shining example really, to show people you can be yourself and still pave your way. You can just do your thing, be bright, be colorful, or you can be completely dressed in black. Everything is in black. You do you, because you deserve it and they deserve it. And we just need to find the people that jive with that while still being open to not just being in our little bubble and then not seeing anybody else's perspective or life or way of life. We need to just be appreciative of that and meet people where they are instead of where we want them to fit into our molds, really. And that applies to yourself as well. Look at yourself like that too. Are you trying to bend over backwards to make people fit in your life and then you fit yourself in there and just box it in, retain some parts of yourself? No. So be proud of yourself. And rant over. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts on social media. All of the links are down below. And I will see you in the next episode on Friday. Take care. Have a fabulous day. Bye.